3. And it's Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. And it is Navy Week. Black Knights, 11-1 on the year, will take on their arch rival, the Naval Academy in Washington at the Commander's Stadium on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock start. And it is broadcast nationally by the big CBS. And it's going to be a very exciting day. So Army now the champions of the American Athletic Conference with the win over Tulane on Friday night. Let's introduce our Huddle members tonight. We've got out of Tampa, out of Palm Beach, Florida, we've got Richard Miller. Richard, how are you?
Very, very well, Ken. Off a championship win. Now on to the Army Navy game.
Yeah. And out of Pelham, New York, we've got Jack McGurk. Jack, how are you?
Hey, happy to be here. Looking forward to the big game on Saturday, and congrats to the new AAC champions.
Yeah, and that has a good ring to it. And calling in from Long Island, we've got Chuck Donegan. Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. It's great to be back. And how about yourself?
Yeah. I'm just up in the Hall of Fame area at Mikey Stadium after covering practice. A little bit of rain today, it's a little cold, drizzle, but nothing stops the Army football team from their practice. And from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, we have Colonel Sam Houston from the class of '87. How are you, Colonel?
It's a great time to be an Army fan. Great time to be a grad. Army has 11 wins and counting so far. So that's 11 games with the W under the belt. But now it's time to win the game.
Yeah, just talk a little bit about Friday night's amazing victory. 35-14, Army went out to a 21-0 lead in this game. All on Bryson Daly rushing touchdowns. He now has 29 on the year. And Army came out strong in the second half. Daly got his 4th touchdown of the game. And Kanye Udo followed with a score early in the 4th quarter. And it was really a game that you have to say Army dominated. Rushed for 338 yards in the game, held Tulane to 115 yards rushing. Kanye Udo 158 yards and a touchdown. Daly 125 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just a terrific day overall. On defense, Andon Thomas led with 8 tackles. Justin Weaver had 6. Max DiDomenico 5. Brent Urena 4. So did Cody Winokur, we talked to today. Caleb Fortner 4. And Dre Miller, a defensive lineman, had 4. Elo Mendoza had a sack in his 3 tackles in the game. The outside linebacker who has a little bit of Andre Carter in him, I would say. So let's start with Sam. Sam, what was your thought on the Tulane game, the strong win? You were there in the stands and on the field later.
It was history in the making. There was no way I was going to miss the game. It's Army's first season in the American Athletic Conference, and they have already, I believe, surpassed the entire win total they had when they forayed into Conference USA about 20 years ago. But here we are, one season into American Athletic Conference. Army has gone undefeated in the conference, and they won their conference championship game at West Point. And the weather cooperated. And what I mean by that is that the Tulane players had to come up and play in cold they're unaccustomed to. I can't quite say to what extent that had an effect on the game. Tulane was out warming up without their shirts on prior, which probably was not the smartest thing to do because it didn't allow their bodies to start warming up and retaining heat. So that probably contributed to them being a little stiffer at the beginning of the game. But here is the most incredible stats that stick out about the game and the performance that Army put on show for all to see that night. Not only those people in Mikey Stadium, but those in the national television audience who watched the game and on ABC. And that was this: Army had 0 penalties, 0 turnovers, and 0 punts. And that is Army football right there. Army's game plan.
You missed one, Sam. 0 incomplete passes.
Well, yeah, 0
2 for 2
passes, but they almost didn't even throw any passes until the second half. So, and those both came on the first drive of the third quarter. But Army's game plan all season long has been to control time of possession, to mount time-consuming drives that culminate in touchdowns, and on defense, stop the run and force the other team into passing situations. And that is really what happened in this game. And something that I really love about the offensive performance in the game was that it was literally knock your teeth out. It was, what we're going to do, and we are daring you to stop us. And when you know what we're going to do, you still can't stop us. I don't think Army had a single negative yardage play in the entire game. And what was even better was that the distribution of the ball was fantastic. So even though Bryson Daly had 4 touchdowns, he was not the leading rusher of the game. That honor belongs to Kanye Udo. And Kanye Udo really had, he tied his career record for yards in a game at 158. And if it hadn't been for one lunging ankle tackle inside the 5-yard line, he would have had a 72-yard touchdown run, which was just amazing when he broke into the clear. And this was still in the first quarter, or actually this was early in the second quarter. He broke into the clear and just streaked down the sideline. But everything seemed to go Army's way because of preparation, not because the gods of football had come down and said, Army, everything's going to go your way. It was because of the preparation. It was the sweat. It was the pain. It was the effort that has gone into the entire week to get ready for this game, and in what has gone into the entire season. I think the exclamation point on the game was Trey Granati forcing a fumble on a Tulane kick return that was recovered by Army. Yeah. And when I watched the replay of the game, even the Army or even the announcers to the game, when I watched the replay, were like, when you go on the field in Army, it doesn't matter what position you play, you're not scared. And it just was a beautiful thing to see. The only lapses that I saw whatsoever on the part of Army was that late in the first half, with barely over a minute to go in the game, Army had just taken it. Well, let me back up. One was inside the 5-yard line. They had a 4th and 3, and they failed to convert. And that was the only time they failed to convert a 4th down the entire game. When they got stuffed at the line of scrimmage at the 3-yard line, and that ended the drive. And they didn't get any points on that. On the ensuing drive, Mensah threw an interception, and Army got the ball right back, went down and scored a touchdown this time. And then with barely a minute left in the game, here we were in the stands thinking that, okay, all we've got to do is just force the Tulane players, tackle them inbounds, run the clock out, we'll go into halftime with a 21-0 lead. But instead, they did allow Tulane to drive in less than a minute down and score on a 43-yard touchdown with a couple of missed tackles and a little bit of a blown coverage. That made the game a little bit, you weren't feeling as good at halftime about what you had just witnessed because you kind of felt like Tulane's getting back in the game.
Yeah,
Well,
21-7 at the half. You thought Tulane, if they had a chance, in the third quarter.
yeah, but when Army came out, Army had deferred when they won the toss, and Army got the ball to start the second half. And there was one scary moment when Army was in a 4th and I believe 5-yard line, 4th and 5 situation. And they went for it. They were on about the 40-yard line. And you're kind of concerned as a fan. You're sitting there watching and like, man, if they don't convert this, Tulane's got a short field. And Tulane can get right back in this game. But lo and behold, Bryson Daly just kind of very coolly and calmly connected a sideline pass to Casey Reynolds for the first down. The very next play, Daly's running down to about the 6-yard line, and then next thing you know, we're in the end zone, and it's 28-7. And it really was not until, again, late in the fourth quarter when Tulane showed a little bit of a sign of life. We were hoping that they would not score. They were really trying hard to score just to make sure that, they made a little bit of a statement that they're still there, that they hadn't given up in the AAC championship game. And they did manage to score with just over a minute to go in the game. They tried an onside kick. It got recovered quickly, and that was the end of the game. So start to finish domination on the part of the Army team. And to add a joyous feel to the whole vibe in the entire stadium was knowing the fact that we had not seen any player get injured like we had been witnessing the previous 2 games, especially the Notre Dame game, but also in the UTSA game. So it makes you feel like the Army not only dominated the game, but they dominated the game healthy, which gave them another week to get even more healthy for the game, which is this Saturday.
Okay. Chuck Donegan, what did you think of the game?
It was definitely one for the ages. Another sterling performance by Bryson Daly, as always. Feeling confident about their chances, the upcoming bowl game. I think they got a good shot at it. Yep, we'll be hoping for the best. They've really got a solid team. It's no surprise they're attracting national attention like never before in recent memory. And
recent
hope
memory,
they'll
there
continue.
was a time when Army got a lot of national attention in football.
I'm sure, yes.
1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, what did you think of the game?
Just like Sam said, it was a dominating performance by Army, and it was also quite impressive when you consider that previously Tulane shut out Navy 35-0, and then Army dominates Tulane, and this is the Army's second 11-win season. The first one was 2018. Both those seasons under Jeff Monken. And one of the stats that jumps out at me about this game shows how disciplined Army was. Penalty yards in this game: Tulane 45, Army 0, not one penalty. So
that was a key stat. Sam mentioned that it's been talked about as no penalties, no incomplete passes, and no turnovers, and then you could add no punts.
No punts.
That's pretty good. That's pretty disciplined football. You're going to win a lot of games playing like that. And they're so well coached and prepared for these games.
Speaking of punts, I did want to make mention that before the game, I went to the Soup's tailgate down at Ike Hall. And once again, I had the great fortune to sit next to the wagon sellers. And they were real excited about the game. And I asked them, how their son was feeling about the game and what they felt like would be the perfect game. And they said, the perfect game for us would be for him to not touch the ball once. And so guess what? They got their perfect game because their son never had to punt at all in that game. And that's Army football. You don't want to punt. You just want to control the time.
Just keep running the ball down the field in a 15-play drive. And do that 6 or 7 times in a game.
Yeah,
that's what we're
demoralizing to the other team. Very demoralizing for sure.
And you wear them out too, and that's been a successful tactic for Army. Richard Miller, what do you think of the game?
I just really thought it was, a game where look, Army dominated definitely from Army definitely dominated, from start to finish. 11-1 right now on the season. I just think it was a game where look, in the a night game, 35-14, Army ended up winning. I think also, if you look also at the game, I like also that they ran the ball. Kane, Udo, and Bryson Daly really chewed up the yards. I think relying on their running game was very critical for Army as both players ran for over 100 yards. Daly had four touchdowns in the game. I think it was a really good night for them to obviously, run it down and jam it right down Tulane's throats.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
on the
Good,
side of
Richard.
the running, I think it was a very good. I think it's a very solid win for me.
Okay. Let's go. We'll go through a few more things. Jack will tell us about Navy, and Chuck can tell us about where the American conference teams are going in the bowl games. And Richard, why don't we'll go down the bowl games. The conference championship games played this past week. Starts Arizona State 45-19 over Iowa State, and got
Yes,
Arizona State had a good season. And then
college football scores.
why don't you go finish up? Go through the bowl game, the conference championships.
Okay, the conference championship games for what? Oh, come on, let me get it up here. Let's see. And
That's
okay,
week 15.
week 15, okay, week 15. Arizona State 45-19 over Iowa State. Iowa State is 10-3. Arizona State finishes 11-2. Ohio 38-3 over Miami of Ohio. Georgia in overtime defeats number 2 Texas 22-19. Marshall 31-3 over Louisiana. Number 17 Clemson 34-31 over SMU. Number 1 Oregon 45-37 over number 3 Penn State. Jacksonville State 52-12 over Western Kentucky, and you have Boise State number 10 defeating UNLV 21-7. As far as also the college football, let's see, college football playoff rankings are as of right now. As they came out over the let's see, they had come out on Sunday. You have Oregon number 1, Georgia number 2, Texas number 3, and Penn State number 4, 5-12. Notre Dame number 5, Ohio State number 6, Tennessee number 7, Indiana number 8, Boise State number 9, SMU number 10, Alabama number 11, Arizona State number 12.
Okay, Richard, thank you. Sam, any surprises there in last week's championship games?
I'm not sure that I would call any of them surprises. It just maybe just a feel for some of the teams that perhaps had a game that they should have won and let it get away from them. Say, for instance, Texas. Texas was playing Georgia a very good game and had the lead for a good portion of the game. Of course, it ended up going into overtime and Georgia won. It looks like Georgia lost their starting quarterback, and he may not be available for the college football playoff. But you kind of feel for Texas, a game that they definitely know they should have won, that would have given them the SEC championship, and instead Georgia remains SEC champion again. And then there was SMU. SMU was another one who had their first season in the ACC. They go and play Clemson, an ACC blue blood. And they battle back against Clemson. They fell behind a little early. They battle back, and they managed to go tie the game with less than a minute to go. And you think you're going to go into overtime. But, man, they just allowed Clemson to get enough yards to give their true freshman kicker the opportunity to kick. And even though it was a 56-yarder, he still nailed it at the end of the game, at the end of regulation, and Clemson walks away the ACC champion. Some of the other games, not surprised. Oregon, I kind of expected them to win. And Penn State, they're a sentimental favorite, but James Franklin has really struggled against top 5 opponents in his time at Penn State. So this was just another night where it happened. And of course, we're rooting for UNLV to possibly upset Boise State. That didn't happen. Boise State, of course, is going to be, I believe, one of the host teams in they're going to host the game, I think, in the second round of college football playoff. So, but overall, I would say probably among the pundits who call the conference games and make their predictions and pontificate about who they believe is going to win, probably Army was the one that surprised people the most, because most predictions I saw had Tulane winning the game. And of course, we know that that's not what happened. But, the bottom line is that we all knew after the conference championship games and the outcomes, when they came to do the college football playoff selection, it was pretty much assured we knew that Army was not going to get a sniff at the college football playoffs. And it's unfortunate, but I believe, as Jeff Monken pointed out, the manner with which Notre Dame dismantled us when we played Notre Dame really weighed heavily in the college football playoff committee. And, they're looking at that, and they're recognizing that Army is, in fact, now 11-1. They are also looking at their only loss comes to number 5 Notre Dame, and Notre Dame handled us pretty well and dismantled us pretty easily. And so when you combine strength of schedule with performance against top 10 teams, it would have taken pretty much a miracle on the college football conference championship day for Army to have managed to get an invite to that.
Well, when they left out teams like Alabama.
Alabama didn't deserve to be in. I live in Alabama, and people can come and they can bring torches to my house and light my bushes on fire here. But I'm here to tell you that all my Alabama friends just settle down. Alabama had 3 losses. They didn't deserve to be in a college football playoff.
Sure. Well, Coach Monken said, if they had been 12-0, he was asked if he thought there was potential in a future year. And he said it's got to be perfect. You have to have a 12-0 season, and then and see how things went from that perspective. But having a game like Notre Dame on the schedule kind of made it difficult.
Yeah, it did. And I have already seen, because a lot of this stuff you have to assume is subjective. And that obviously means that people who think their team should have been in and they're not, they're going to be upset. So the latest proposals I'm hearing flying around is that they need to expand it by 4 more teams and make it 16 to ensure that all of the P4 and G5 conference champions are invited into the college football playoff every year.
Well, I just think more teams want to be in, and it's going to be a little bit more like the basketball tournament, where there's an expectation if you have a good season and you're in a power league that you get in.
Yeah, but I can see the logic in what is being argued right now, because in basketball, you can have a 12-12 season and go into your conference championship, win the championship, and you get an automatic invite to the NCAAs. So you automatically get invited to the field of 64. So in FBS football, you've got the P4 and you've got the G5. And I can see the logic behind saying that, hey, if you win your conference championship game and you win your conference, then you should get an automatic invite to the playoff. I can understand.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Makes total sense to me. No, it's not going to happen, Ken, but I'm just saying, if you can't compare NCAA men's basketball to FBS football. It's not apples to apples. It's not oranges to oranges. It's a square peg in a round hole. They don't compare.
Okay. Okay. Jack McGurk, why don't you give us a rundown? You've been following Navy closely all year. What's your initial assessment of the Navy football team?
Well, they're doing pretty well now. They have a record now of 8-3. They just had a bye week. Their last game was November 29th, day after Thanksgiving. 8-3 is the record. They had a 34-20 win over East Carolina on November 29th. Quarterback Braxton Woodston, very nice game, rushed for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, while throwing for 165 yards and a touchdown in the game. And Eli Heidenreich rushed for 82 yards, had a touchdown in the game. Navy had 458 yards total offense in the game, 293 rushing. So had a nice win there over East Carolina. And in addition to the game this weekend, they're in a bowl game, Navy. They're going to be playing in the Armed Forces Bowl out in Fort Worth, Texas, taking on the Oklahoma Sooners in that game. So that's not going to be an easy game for Navy.
Well, it's a big name opponent and gives them an opportunity to have a big day. Armed Forces Bowl is well done. And Army's been down there 3 times and won all 3. And you could very well see Navy have a successful day, but it could be after they've had a tough game against Army. And we'll see. Chuck Donegan, tell us, where did the American Conference teams go in the bowl games? Do you have any of the listing?
Yeah, well, and we've got quite a few of them coming up. There's Saturday. Got the Army-Navy game, first of all.
Sure.
Foremost, that'd be a good one. All right, and then up we have got the Frisco Bowl for Tuesday, December 17th. That's 9 p.m. ESPN. And then Friday, December 20th, the Gasparilla Bowl between Tulane and Florida. Yeah, that's 3:30 ESPN2. Monday, December 23rd is the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Yeah, Central Carolina, UTSA, 11 a.m. ESPN. And then heading to the Aloha State Christmas Eve for the Hawaii Bowl between South Florida, San Jose State, 8 p.m. ESPN. 2 days after Christmas, we have the Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma Navy. That's at noon on ESPN. Yeah, then we've got a couple more right after that on Saturday, December 28th.
We'll take a break. We'll let Richard catch up on that.
All righty.
Of course, Army is going to go to Shreveport, Louisiana, to the Independence Bowl and take on Marshall, the Thundering Herd, who just lost their coach. What's your thought on the Army Marshall matchup in the Independence Bowl, Sam?
Right. So this is a case study in why transfer portal something needs to be done about transfer portal. It's getting out of hand, very much out of hand. People were complaining when Army got matched up with Marshall. Marshall on paper, great opponent, 10-3, just won their conference, the Sun Belt, and had a lot of momentum. And then, lo and behold, their coach leaves. And just about every skill position on their offense, their first, second, and third string quarterback, all of their starting running backs, several of their starting defensive backs and defensive players, all declare for the transfer portal.
Really? So they won't play?
No.
Play if they're in the transfer portal? Can they? Is that an option?
You just automatically assume if they have declared for the transfer portal, they are not going to play in the bowl game. So what Army is going to likely face in the Independence
Bowl, you guys
Bowl
want to see what diapers I wear?
Is a true shell of what Marshall, who won their conference, their team actually will be. It's a question mark. Who's even going to play quarterback? So and this is not a micro of the macro. There are a bunch of teams that are headed to bowl games who have a bunch of players that have already declared for the transfer portal. My understanding is that Oklahoma and Florida both, who are facing Navy and Tulane respectively, also have a number of players who've declared for the transfer portal. So, people were complaining about how, Army wins the American Athletic Conference, and what do they get? They get Marshall. Meanwhile, Navy gets Oklahoma. And I was trying to point out, before any of this came to light, I was trying to point out to people that you're talking about a 6-6 Oklahoma team that was 13th in the SEC. This is not the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma. This is not a Barry Switzer Oklahoma team. This was a 6-6 Oklahoma team that was not very good. Yeah, they got a lot of talent, and sometimes they did play well, but a lot of times they played terrible. Go look at their game against Texas. They played Texas at home and got run off the field. So, it really begs the question of, is the transfer portal really something that is improving college football, or have we reached the point where the fluidity of rosters on FBS football teams outside of the service academies is eliminating the ability to build a representation of teamwork and to borrow Army's pride, which is brotherhood among their team, and a loyalty to the school? And I'm going to submit to you and say, no, it doesn't, because what it does is it gives a lot of players who feel like, oh, my coach left, so I'm going to leave because I came to play for him. I didn't come to play at this school, even though they're giving me a scholarship. Or they're a 3 or 4 star recruit, and they've not yet earned a starting role on the team, and they feel like they're not getting played enough, so they're just going to enter the transfer portal where they think the pastures are greener on the other side.
Okay.
I just don't agree with all this, and I honestly, I'm going to state it emphatically. I've never been a fan of the transfer portal. I have never been a fan of NIL money. And I think that the combination of the two are destroying college football right now. And we're witnessing it in the micro of what is happening with Marshall within 72 hours of them winning their conference championship. They already have most of their starters are going to not even play in the bowl game because they've entered the transfer portal.
We'll have to look that up, how many Marshall players are in the transfer portal. Maybe Richard can check that and keep an eye on that. But yeah, I mean, we've seen, Army has taken the bowl games more seriously than some opponents. The dominating win over Houston, the win over Missouri, being able to stay with Missouri and kick a field goal to beat them at the end. Missouri had a couple of players that were not playing because they were getting ready for the NFL Combine.
Excuse me, Ken?
Go ahead.
There was something out last night, a report from Michael Gallinger of Alton Sports. Entire college football team reportedly could enter the transfer portal. The entire college football team.
That's Marshall. That's Marshall. That's Marshall. Oh. Literally,
so what could happen if you don't have a representative team?
This is a big question, Ken. And there's been a lot of speculation about this already. What happens if the entire Marshall team just goes on strike and says we're going in the transfer portal? What does that do for Army and the Independence Bowl? Does that mean that now the Independence Bowl extends an invite to a 5-7 team? It's not unheard of. If you recall, when Army played in the Zaxby's Heart of Dallas Bowl, North Texas was 5-7. They weren't even 6-6. So, and it's unfortunate like this. It really is. It's unfortunate. I feel sorry. I really feel for the Marshall fans. I was very excited about playing Marshall because I knew how good of a team Marshall has been this season. And when you and I talked just a few days ago, I didn't know about any of this stuff. This all stuff came to light after we spoke. So now there's consternation. I've already bought tickets for the Independence Bowl and a lot of other people too. So, and what about the Army players? What about the Army team? They're all excited about the fact that they're going to this bowl game. The Independence Bowl game pays about $1 million more than the Armed Forces Bowl. It's a big deal. It's a primetime game on a Saturday night. And it's an opportunity, once again, for Army to showcase how good of a program they are, to showcase the brotherhood. And now they're looking like they're going to have an opponent where, half the team that won the conference championship isn't even going to be on the field.
Well, Sam, let's maybe we'll revisit that next week.
Yeah, it's a great
see what it is on what the facts are on Marshall, if any substantial number of their players are not going to play.
Most certainly, because
this Coach week Duncan will say they got 120 players like everybody else. So even if 7 or 8 guys leave, they still have players.
They do have players, but this is in many cases, like a quarterback, their first, second, and third string quarterback declared for the transfer portal.
Is that a fact? Do we know that?
Yes, that is a fact. That is a fact. I'm not making that up.
Wow, that's something because
so this is a serious situation here. But yeah, I agree. This is Beat Navy week.
Let's revisit that next week after we've taken care of business in Washington, D.C.
We most certainly will, and we'll know more. You're right.
Okay, let's get back to Navy. It's we only get 1 week a year, especially in this circumstance, to really dive in there. Sam, I was looking at some of their stats, comparing them to Army. They've been allowing 23 points a game versus Army 15. And obviously the Army both schools' numbers are inflated by their Notre Dame games. Army's rushing for 314. They're rushing for just 247. They have an edge in passing yards, 128 a game versus 83 for Army. But Army's leading in total offense, 397 to 375. But where you see a big difference is defense in yards given up. Army 297 and Navy is 380. So Navy's been giving up 82 yards more per game than Army has. And obviously the edge at quarterback and Daly 1,480 yards rushing, and Harbath 895. So we will see what it is. But what do you see any significant difference there with with Navy's defense, that Army has an edge?
This is something that I've been pointing out all season long, and that is look at the stats. Navy, when they were 6-0, I kept saying, look at the stats. The stats don't compare. Offensively and defensively, Navy has not been putting up the numbers that Army has been. Navy has not been consistently holding other teams out of the end zone like Army has been doing. Navy has not been effective inside the red zone on defense. Navy on offense has committed far more 3-and-outs than Army has. Navy has relied a lot more on explosive plays, both on offense and defense, than they have on actually statistically from 60 minutes of each game consistently outperforming the other team. There are multiple games this season, even games that Navy won, where the other team outgained them, and many times outgained them by a lot of yardage. And it came down to untimely interceptions or fumbles on the part of the other team that allowed Navy to either stay in the game or have the opportunity to take maybe a 1 or 2 touchdown lead. Look at the Memphis game, for example. Memphis way outgained Navy in yardage. And, Navy had 2 pick sixes in that game. You take those 2 pick sixes away and you flip the score and say that Memphis ended up scoring on those 2 drives. You're talking about Memphis winning by 2 scores or more over Navy. And I'm not taking anything away from Navy. A win is a win. But I'm just saying that statistically, Navy has not shown themselves to be as statistically consistent on both sides of the ball, as Army has every game, with the exception of Notre Dame. And, I don't know. I've never compared the statistics between Notre Dame and Army and Notre Dame and Navy, but I tend to believe that they're probably similar, but except for one thing, and that is Navy turned the ball over 6 times. Army did not. Army turned the ball over once. Then you had the block punt, and I think they failed to convert on a 4th down. But Navy has had times where they've been exposed, and Tulane is a great example. And people can say that, well, Horvath, he got hurt in the game, and that was the difference. It's not the difference. 35-0, and what you're saying is that when Horvath went down, they didn't have a next man up at quarterback. Are you saying that the defense just suddenly laid down and quit playing? This game was at Navy. It was their senior day. And this is important to take note of. Another common opponent that Navy has had with Army is Rice. And Navy played Rice and they lost 21-10. They played ugly. They turned the ball over a lot. There were a lot of weather delays, but that's not the reason they played poorly. I mean, they just played poorly and they lost the game. So bottom line is that come Saturday, Navy's going to be ready to play. But we don't know which Navy team we're going to get. For example, Horvath has been hurt. This week, Horvath has claimed that he's good to go. He's going to play. I believe that. But is he 100%? I don't know. Is he going to start? We won't know until the Navy's first possession. If he does play, my understanding is that his injury against Tulane was an aggravation of a previous injury. So how much time has he had? How much recovery has he actually made in the time that he has not been playing? So the simple fact is that, Army Navy is always a brawl. Army Navy is always a slugfest. Army Navy, like Jeff Monken said, it's like we're going to hit you with sledgehammers, and then we're going to let the other side hit us with sledgehammers, and eventually we're going to hit each other with sledgehammers until there's only one person standing, and whoever that is, that's the team that won. That's the way Army Navy games normally are, and that's the way Army Navy games have been in the Monken era, every single one of them, except for one, and that was the Malcolm Perry asterisk season for Navy.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal game by Malcolm Perry, one of the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, once in a generation player, just like Bryson Daly. He's a once in a generation player. So
Sam, you bring up Bryson Daly, 29 touchdowns now. When is a Heisman Trophy finalist announced? It's got to be
Army Navy game after the Army Navy game that night. That's when
they announced a winner there, but the question is, will they invite Bryson Daly to the?
They already made the invitations. Ken, he's not invited.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay.
Ken,
go ahead, Rick.
They actually have the finalists.
Who are the finalists?
Dylan Gabriel, Colorado cornerback wide receiver Travis Hunter, and Boise running back Alshon Gentry. Miami quarterback Cam Ward were named the finalists, and it's going to be announced this Saturday night.
So they'll be invited to the show in New York.
Yeah, normally they invite 5 people. They only invited 4 this year for some reason. And I've stated on our huddle before that, the year that Keenan Reynolds was invited to the Heisman, I actually was a fan of Keenan. I actually was like, man, I hope Keenan gets it because he's really had an amazing season. Look at the stats of Keenan Reynolds his first year, and look at the stats of Bryson Daly, and understand that Bryson didn't play one game. Keenan Reynolds played the entire season. The stats are almost identical. If you add in stats for Bryson playing one more game, just making an assumption of what you could expect him to get in that game that he missed, which was the Air Force game, the stats are almost identical. Keenan Reynolds gets invited, Bryson Daly doesn't. And I don't know. It just seems to me I'm not saying that it is, but I'm with Coach Monken. You know, after the AAC championship game, and I ran down on the field. I didn't have credentials like a bunch of other people, and I stood there until I got told, because you don't have credentials, you got to leave. But I stood there while Jeff Monken made his talk, and I agree with it. It's like, hey, Heisman, what are you looking for? This guy deserves an invite. Let this guy go to the downtown athletic club, and even if he doesn't win, let the nation know what this guy has done. Let the nation know this guy has pretty much symbolized and represented almost everything you claim the Heisman represents. And, you know, through his toughness, his leadership, his integrity, his performance on the field, and every bit as much as what Keenan Reynolds did his first year, Bryson Daly has done this year. And I'm sorry, it's just kind of, I can understand the college football playoff thing. I'm not upset about that at all. But I, like so many other Army fans, I do not get it. Breisman for Heisman, you know, the Breisman Trophy. You know,
we're all hoping that
he should have been at least invited as one of the finalists, and he wasn't. And so that's just the way it is. And so the Heisman committee can just watch Bryson Daly just have another career day dismantling Navy this Saturday.
Well, that would be good to see. I saw Bryson out coming off the practice field. He is set to go. And
I'm sure he is.
And
I can promise you, I would not want to be the guy trying to tackle Bryson Daly in open field. I would not.
You know, I think Navy's going to have a few chances to do that on Saturday. Just looking at how many times he ran, I think that's been one of the questions we've had. Is he running? Can he hold up? He ran 25 times this past game, and Kanye Udo ran 20. Noah Short 8. Did the majority of the carries.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect that Bryson Daly is going to run another 25 times on Saturday?
Wow. Yeah. I was just thinking about this. Actually, I've been thinking about this ever since the AAC championship game. Historically speaking, in the Monken era, especially in the last few years, like let's just say from 2018 forward, not so much in 2017. 2017 was the last year where Army gained over 300 yards rushing against Navy. But starting in 2018 and then continuing on until last year, for some reason, when it comes time to play Navy, the playbook gets, I don't know, it just gets simplified. And it turns into just base plays and ball control instead of opening it up and opening up the playbook.
Well, I don't want to make any mistakes. I don't want to put the ball down on the carpet.
Well, I know that, but I want you to just think about this, Ken. How many times has Army actually fumbled this year, period?
I think just twice. So
yeah, well, there you go.
The
point is that Army's offense has demonstrated that it is one of the best offenses in the country this year about not turning the ball over, no matter what plays they're running. So,
well,
I'm saying this as a preface. I'm saying this as a preface. In order to keep Saturday from being a Bryson Daly carrying the ball 38 times game, Army needs to run an offense of distribution similar to what they ran against Tulane. They need to play the perimeter game. They need to hand off to Udo. They need to get T-Rob involved with the game a little bit more and get the ball in his hands a few more times. Get the ball to Hayden Reed. We know that Hayden Reed can run with it. He blocks outstanding, and he's probably one of the best blocking backs that Army's got. I mean, literally, and he had a career day against Tulane. When I watched the replay, I was watching Hayden Reed and watching his blocks. They're just amazing. Get the guy the ball a little bit. You know, they call him the Swiss Army knife for a reason. So what is the game plan that we're going to see? So if if we go back into, if we play a predominance of a shotgun formation, Bryson Daly left, Bryson Daly right, this is going to be an extremely low scoring game. It's just going to be an extremely low scoring game, and that's not what we want.
Well, I think we would all be quite happy with a 7-0 win.
Everyone's happy in beating Navy, Ken, but what we're not, you know, when you have a team that has been as dominant as Army has been this year, what you expect going into the Army-Navy game is you expect dominance. And I'm telling you what, this is the year. This is the year. Open up the playbook and put some points up on Navy.
Okay.
Make it too big to rig, man. We don't want this to come down to a goal line stand at the end of regulation again.
Yeah, that would be
up by 2 or 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. You know, and make Navy be playing catch up where they make mistakes. See, that's part of the psyche of this whole thing. You saw what happened to Tulane. Tulane gets behind. They realize there's a clock in their head running of how many more times are we going to have the opportunity to get the ball? Because every time Army has the ball, they're taking 7, 8, 9 minutes off the clock, and they're scoring touchdowns. So when they get in the game, they're desperate. They start making mistakes. I'd like to see Navy making mistakes in the second half because they're down by 2 and 3 touchdowns. That's what I would like to see. And Army's got the defense to make that happen. But in order to put that kind of a gap in the score on Navy, you're going to have to open up the playbook. And I think that Cody Worley is going to do it. I think for once we're going to go in and you're going to see Army actually open up the playbook and say, we're playing our game. We are playing our game. Navy knows we're going to play it. But even though they know we're going to run it, we're still going to beat you at it. And that's just the way it is.
Very good. Well, I think you're going to see conservative play, and you're going to see Bryson Daly and Udo handle the ball the most. And as they've done, they'll try to do a couple of reverse plays to Noah Short and possibly to Tyrell Robinson.
Yeah.
It's going to be conservative. They don't want to make mistakes, and we'll see what happens.
I'd be, if there was a betting line on who runs the first reverse play, I'm betting Navy runs the reverse before Army does.
Okay, well, they're going to get the ball first if Army has the preference. If Army wins the toss.
No, Army's going to defer. I guarantee you, Army always defers.
That's what I meant. So Navy would get the ball first, and they'll probably run it.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, Navy, you're going to see some looks from Navy this weekend that Navy has not run all year.
Yeah, well,
you're going to see some looks from Army that Army has not run all year. But I'm just here to tell you that when it comes to which team gets desperate and runs a reverse first, it's probably going to be Navy. Now, what I might say that you're likely to see is, you remember early on in the season, Army was running some trick special teams plays. You haven't seen that in a while, not since the North Texas failure. You may see that if we get into a fourth and short situation in our own territory. You might see a trick play or something like that. But you know, we'll see.
Hopefully, they don't have to get to that point where they need something like that they're trailing and they've got to pull something, do a fake punt.
No.
Hopefully, they never have to have a putting situation. Okay, well, let's wrap up and let's go through our lightning round and pick a score. Army versus Navy in Washington. Richard Miller, why don't you lead off?
Okay, I'm going to go with this one. It's going to be Army victory. I'm going to go, let's see, 35-14 Army. 35-14 Army.
Okay, very good. And Jack McGurk?
I'm thinking right along the same lines as Richard there. I'm going to say 35-21 Army.
Very good. And Chuck Donegan?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Richard, more or less, but I think Army's going to have an even stronger victory. I think the final will be 42-14.
42-14. Jack, can you repeat your forecast?
I said 35-21 Army.
35-21. You give them the Mid's another touchdown. And okay, let's go to Sam Houston.
I'm kind of laughing because Jack, he like stole my thunder, so I'm going to have to give a different prediction. Before I give my prediction, I'm going to say this. There's one thing that we haven't talked about, and I'm just going to make this one quick, and that is we've reached that time of year. Army's had an amazing season, and of course, Jeff Monken's name's being thrown around a lot. He was being thrown around about the Purdue position, and honestly, that's the one that worried me the most. I'm happy to say that Purdue has already hired a coach, and that is the UNLV coach. The other two openings that exist still right now, unless something's happened while we've been in this huddle, is the head coaching position at the University of North Carolina and the head coaching position at West Virginia. And of course, Monken's name is being thrown around prominently at both of those locations. I'll tell you what I know, and what will fall out of the woodwork at North Carolina. By my understanding, Belichick has been offered the job, Bill Belichick of the Patriots.
Yep.
And he has accepted it with conditions, basically a 400-page manifesto of conditions.
400 pages of requirements.
Yeah,
Wow.
400 pages of requirements back to the UNC board of directors that they have to agree to, and he'll take the position. I think we'll find out within the next 24 hours what they say. West Virginia, and we certainly hope that they agree and take Bill Belichick, and we get to see Bill Belichick, second winningest coach in NFL history, a coach at the collegiate level again for the first time in a long, long time, because he was once a Navy assistant coach. Then you got West Virginia. By everything I have read, by everything I have followed, by everything that I have listened to, the people at West Virginia want Rich Rodriguez back at West Virginia. Rich Rodriguez was their coach. He had three 10-win seasons at West Virginia, and he got hired away to go to Michigan, where he did not do as well and was released by Michigan. And of course, now he coaches at Jacksonville State. I believe he just won a conference championship, and he's riding high in that. But from my understanding is that the big push from West Virginia right now is for Rich Rodriguez. But I do believe, from what I have heard, from what intel I've gathered, that they have contacted and maybe even interviewed our favorite coach, and that would be Jeff Monken, about that position. Whether or not Jeff would take it, I don't know. But let's just hope that Rich Rodriguez lands back in Mountaineer land and takes over West Virginia, and Bill Belichick goes to North Carolina. And we can put this to rest for another year. So we'll see what happens. We'll find out a lot.
Hopefully
we'll find out a lot in the next few days. But what's most important right now is Navy. As Jeff Monken says, they've accomplished a lot of their goals already this season. 11 wins, ties the record for the most wins in Army football history. But if they do not win on Saturday, this has not been a successful season. Success resides on going 1-0 this Saturday against your most important opponent every season. And it's time for that game. It's time to beat Navy. And so this Saturday, Army is going to get it done. I originally was going to predict the score that Jack said, but in honor of Trey Granati, who forced a fumble on a kick return this past Friday night against Tulane, and many kudos to the kicker for forcing a fumble. I love that. Everyone did. I'm going to give Trey Granati a field goal, and we're going to say that the final is going to be Army 38, Navy 21.
38-21. Okay. Forecast from Sam Houston. Okay, my thought on this is that I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game. Navy's had 2 weeks to prepare. They are coming off a nice win over East Carolina, so they're going to be ready to play. I think it's going to be Army ball control, and so I was initially going to say 17 to 7. I think I'm going to go 17-10. So I'm going to be less aggressive on the points than you guys. and I probably should have said 30 to 13, and I would have been. I'd have the best chance on anything that's low scoring game. But I'm going to predict it's going to be a little bit of a low scoring game, but Army's going to run its offense, control the ball, and but Navy's going to stay in the game, and it's going to be an exciting finish till the end. And then, so we'll see who comes out closer. Who won last week, by the way? Who was closer? 35-14 score.
Trying to remember what my guess was last week. I think I said 35. No, I did not say 35. I think I said, I don't know. Actually, honestly, I don't remember. I know I predicted Army to win. I think I might have. Oh, you know what? I think I said 35-28 last for the game. That's what I said.
Okay.
That was my guess.
Okay. Well, anyway, any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah. Oh, this is something I believe. I've gone back and I have not confirmed this, but I believe another important stat to consider about Army's defense this year. I think that in every single game this year, they have had a 4 and out where they have stuffed somebody on 4th down in every game, at least once. That's pretty impressive. Some of them have been goal line stands. Some of them have been, fourth. They did it again against Tulane. They forced a 4 and out, and they did it against Notre Dame inside the 5-yard line. So expect to see at some point during the Army-Navy game, Army's defense does force a 4. They force a failed 4th down conversion attempt.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Sam. Okay, well, we will be down at Commanders Stadium, and should be over 80,000 there. March on start at 12 noon. You can watch that on CBS Sports. And then the game starts at 3 o'clock. Lots of tailgates beforehand. And but it's nothing like watching the march on of the cadets and then the midshipmen. It's a very unique and impressive moment to watch the students from both schools present themselves out on the field.
I'll make quick mention as well. President-elect Trump will also be in attendance at the game.
He's doing the coin toss.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, we'll see who represents the administration. When you're the president is going to be at the game, it means getting around is going to be more difficult. Security goes up a few more notches, but that's all what they have to do.
Yep.
Okay, so we will break, and I want to thank our team, our Huddle members, Richard Miller and from Florida,
Thank you.
and Jack McGurk from Pelham with a great background shot. Chuck Donegan out in Long Island, and Sam Houston at the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. And
Go Army, beat Navy.
Yep.
And I'm in the Army Hall of Fame area up at Mikey Stadium following today's practice. So we will have reports during the week, and then from the stadium on Saturday, all the pageantry and that's all put together to be one of the great days in college sports each year. And we're so fortunate and appreciative to be able to bring it to you. So we'll say goodnight and say thanks to everyone for watching our Army Football Huddle.